Welcome back to Tabletop to another day on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duels, and for today, I'll be showing you cards that I believe are quintessential to your success inside Master Duels, and I'll explain each one of my choices as we go along, but I keep getting this request, people asking me, Trent, how exactly do I win games? What cards should I prioritize the utmost in order to craft? And I don't know how to tell you this, but 600 euros in, 100 hours or 90 hours or plus, probably 100 or more by the end of this video, on Master Duels, and this is what I've come up with in the last week and a half. The game's been out, not even a week and a half, it's only been out for 9 days, Jesus. 100 hours, 10 hours a day, oh god, I'm crazy. But here are my choices and why they're important and why you probably should be making them. The first one is going to be Effect Failure. Effect Failure is a very effective card. Pun intended. The thing is, during your main phase, or your opponent's main phase, you can discard this card from your hand to the graveyard and choose one of your monsters to negate the effect. A lot of these things are effect negation. If you stop your opponent from playing cards, you win the game. If you stop them from drawing cards, you win the game. But the problem with Effect Failure is he is not exactly the thing that I would prioritize the most. He will make sense inside decks where you have tuners, where you can use things like, I don't know, combinations with the Cry Halifax over here, in order to find your Linktree summonings if you so need to. But inside other decks, he's not necessarily that useful, because being only able to do it during your opponent's main phase just limits you quite a bit. So even though he is effective, I think you should only craft him if you're planning on using synchros or trying to link chain a little bit in decks that are weak against it. So on my to-buy list, he's up there as an evergreen, but he is not up there in priority. The ones that I would prioritize is the next one, Maxi. Maxi is important, and I know everyone and their mother has told you why you should craft one of these, but the reason is Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game where there's no resources that need to be paid. Which I mean, in most other games, it is a cumulative resources. The stronger the card, the stronger the resource you need to pay, or the more resources you need to pay. Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't do that. You just play it straight out, or you tribute summon, or synchro summon, ritual summon, which bypasses so many things, where other games require you to generate resources every turn and get a bit stronger. Yu-Gi-Oh! You can outright summon out your boss monsters in one turn. You don't have to pay for anything, as long as you have the correct summoning conditions. Like something like Matmex, who you just need the cards in your hand or to special summon like a fuck ton of monsters. Maxi is amazing. And in any decks where you require to draw cards, which is every single deck, Maxi is amazing. I don't know why this card isn't banned yet, or limited to one, but I can see why the people on their Master Duels will want this out, because people are going to craft it. The reason being is that you cannot get it from anywhere else. You have to craft it yourself. Don't buy it from the master packs. It's stupid. Just get whatever you need, and then eventually you get the ultra rares that you need. But Maxi, 100%. Get 3 of these as soon as you can. They fit into every single deck if you're just waiting on something. The next card is Ash Blossom. You can buy one of these as a bundle, but Ash Blossom is just amazing. It can prevent opponents from searching their decks to get a card in hand. It prevents them from special summoning from their deck and summoning a card from the deck to the graveyard. Why is this important? It's because adding a deck to the hand also means that they cannot use the Maxi effect. You can use this in response. So Maxi, Ash Blossom, then you negate their Maxi effect. It stops them in their tracks. You need counters for the strongest things inside the game, and this prevents them from doing so many other things inside the game, and it shuts down a lot of decks. Witchcrafters gets destroyed by this thing because they require to discard a card and sacrifice a creature. You, however, just have to lose one card. So if they use something like Cyanide Mining, which is where they discard a card and find a card, you can just use Ash Blossom in response, and they're down 2 cards, but you're only down 1, therefore you're up in hand advantage here. The next card I'm going to talk about, it's going to be the Beru. If you have your Maxi in hand, then you can just eventually put one in the Beru in the hand and then counteract your entire opponent's strategy. The Beru works in such a way that he's a quick effect card, right? So you have to time this very specifically, because he can get banished, he can be called to the grave, but he can get negated. But the thing is, the meta right now is so inundated with combo decks. You see it all the same fucking time. Like, everyone's comboing off sending 10 monsters in one turn, or summoning 10 monsters in one turn. And the Beru shuts them down, because you summon the Beru, you sacrifice all their creatures by tributing them so they can't respond to that, and then you put their Beru onto the battlefield, and then you put their monsters in defense mode. So now there's just left with 1 token, which, if you build in the right deck, it's very easy to get rid of, because a lot of the good decks nowadays will have at least 1 availability in order to remove cards from the field, which you probably should be having. I'm not gonna lie, there's things like, well, Lightning Storm is one of them, which we'll get to, but Raigeki is a free card that you get from the tutorials, which is really good. I'm using so many decks as well. And it's strange being limited to one, because I think it's like the normal card game, it's like unlimited to 3. So, but people don't really use it because the actual card game itself has so many other cards and techs that Raigeki is really a good tech to have. But the next card I'm going to talk about, it's going to be Upstart Goblin. Now, here's the thing about Upstart Goblin. You give 1,000 life points to your opponents. That's fuck all. Drawing 1 card. I would sooner give them 2,000 life points and draw a card than having a card draw that has a drawback, which is the pot cards. And the reason why Upstart Goblin is an ultra rare, which I'm not too sure why, is because there's no drawback. The drawback is you give your opponents 1,000 life points, which in the grand scheme of things means literally nothing. So it's just hand advantage. It's nice to have 3 of in some of the decks that you just want the cards to keep going, or you don't want to banish things, because Pot of Prosperity, pretty good for decks where you don't have to use your extra deck and you can draw cards and excavate, which is situational, but it does make sense to have it sometimes. But a lot of the decks nowadays require so many extra decks, tech, that you kind of want your extra deck in there. The same reason for Pot of Extravagance, banishing cards face down as well. You don't really want to banish your extra deck if you need it, but it is card advantage. The next thing I'm going to say is like Pot of Desires is one of my favorite pots now, because once you're done with your combo, you got all the things that you need out of your deck and into your graveyard. You don't need the rest of the cards anymore because you can just recycle it. Good decks will be able to recycle it. And it's very situational, but Pot of Desires, the only drawback is that you cannot use more than 1 a turn. But the other drawback is that you lose like a third of your deck, which is fine. Honestly, people keep thinking, oh, Trent, I'm losing a third of my deck. Well, you know, things like Virtual World don't really care about banishment cards. And things like fucking Trinity Dragons, where you can summon from the banishment pile too, those cards work in banishment. So I don't know sure what to say about this, but Pot of Desires has a drawback that can also be a perk at some stage as well. And I really like that for that regard. So I'm just gonna put this here as well. And another card that's, you know, as we're going on for like the super rare version that I really enjoy is Reasoning. Reasoning is a card where you basically get to special summon a monster card from your deck. So your opponent picks a card level, and then if they pick it right, everything goes to the graveyard. But if they pick it wrong, all the cards still go to the graveyard as you excavate, but you still get to play out 1 monster, and it's insane value. Something like, if you guys see my Witchcrafter video, putting things in your graveyard you want to populate it with, Reasoning's amazing. You want a free summon for turn? Reasoning's amazing. This is a card that people should all have. I would get 3 if not for the fact that I'm out of fucking SRs. And again, why don't I have multiple copies of these? Because you have to fucking craft these. A lot of the cards here that are actually good, you need to make. And I think that's bullshit, if we're going to be honest here. All the good cards shouldn't be hidden behind some sort of fucking crafting system. They should be able to be attainable, for one thing. But it is what it is. You know what? I'm just telling you how to spend your wild cards here, because God knows Konami's got to make it very hard for us to figure it out, because you're never going to see these cards unless you know about them. If you just take cards out of your packs, the chances of getting any of these SRs or ultra rare cards from the master packs is just astronomically low. It makes no sense to do. Just grab the ones with the archetypes you want, and eventually you get the wild cards to do. The next one's going to be Terraforming, and my next on the list. The reason why I don't personally have a Terraforming currently is because of one thing. It's an ultra rare, and in terms of ultra rares, I still haven't gotten everything that I wanted from this fucking game. But the second reason is because I also own a copy of Metaverse, which we were able to do the same thing. It's an ultra rare as well, but it's a trap card. Works a little bit well inside like Mecha decks, where you can, you know, discard trap cards in order to negate it. But the reason why I don't personally use Terraforming is because I already have one of these. It makes no financial sense for me to do Terraforming. I'm already 600 euros in. I'm going to be 1,000 euros in soon enough. And yeah, eventually I'll get Terraforming because it is good. Add a field card from your deck to your hand. Why is this good? Well, one, there are some cards where you only have 2 copies of. One thing that comes to mind is going to be Meltdown. Actually, a very, very potent card here that allows you to find the Alistair card. So you only have 2 of these inside your deck, so the third one you put in with Terraforming. And you want to be nuts, you put in Metaverse as well. But it also acts as advantage. So here's the thing. The less cards on your deck, the higher the chances of you finding the cards you want. Easy, right? You know, less cards, more probability, which is why Terraforming is good. 1, you play it. 2, you take a card out of your deck that you actually need. And then 3, your deck is now thinner and easier to find the cards you actually want. So once you're done with this, like I said, Pot of Desires, because you don't have to care anymore with the field spell. Because everything's on your deck, you just take it out. Eventually, you'll get there. And the next card we're going to talk about is going to be Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm, I think, is a very neat tech. There are some decks that run 3 copies of them, some decks that only run 1. But it's nice to have. It turns out the bundles for a reason, and Konami knows for a fact that we're going to craft 3 Lightning Storms because it's literally, guys, a fucking Harpy's Feather Duster. Which I'm pretty sure y'all need one as well. I have one inside some of my decks too because it's unconditional destruction. But Lightning Storm allows you versatility. Whereas you can pick all the attack monsters your opponent control, which usually they're never in defense mode, or it's destroying all the traps and spells. In decks where you want to combo off and get off, or even if you're going turn 2, using Lightning Storm to wipe the board before you start your combos is amazing. And there's a reason why this is one of the go cards, and you can own 3 copies of these as well. The problem with this one is that it's very situational. Some decks use them to great extent, other decks do not. Decks that don't use them to the great extent are things that want to populate their fields very quickly, things that want to use their cards and get value back. It's very situational, but it is nice to have a few copies of these. You get 1 straight away. I think 1 will serve you very well inside your endeavors, so there's no need for you to get any more until you really make a deck that you want to specialize in where Lightning Storm is usable. Something like Macmex would be usable. Something like Witchcrafters, this will be pretty decent. The next card I'm going to talk about are just another anti-meta cards. So you target a card inside your opponent's graveyard and banish it, and then if you do, until next turn, its effects are negated. And as well as the activated effects of the monsters in the field with the same name. So here's the thing. Ash Blossom counters out Max C. Call by the Grave cancels out Ash Blossom and Max C. Or both, you know, it works like that. Or anything inside your opponent's graveyard. They send a thing to the grave, banish it. They send a thing to the grave in order to activate an effect, banish it. They want their graveyard to be... they want a special something from their graveyard, banish it on the stack or on the chain before it gets off. Call by the Grave, there's a reason why it's only limited to 2, because it is such a... It's such a counteractive spell that's so versatile. It's really good, and I will recommend getting 2. I only have 1 currently, like I said, ultra rares, but their cards are just so... There's so many good staples here that we need to get. And I still have to gone on to the next one here, which is Cross Out Designator. Does the same thing. So your opponent declares an Ash Blossom. You play Cross Out Designator, right? So naming Ash Blossoms at your deck. You take out an Ash Blossom from your deck to counter out their Ash Blossom, which is pretty good. So I'm not going to lie, this happens at instant speed as well. So you can still activate the Ash Blossom on top of that. So let's say they play Ash Blossom, right? Then you use Cross Out Designator, remove your Ash Blossom, get out the Ash Blossom, and then negate the 2 of them. Easy. The next one is that they play out Max C. Since you haven't used your Ash Blossom for turn, you can use it right now to counteract the Max C. And this is how the combo is going off, because we're able to counteract these opponents. And the fact that it is really good is amazing. The fact that you can grab the card from your deck is pretty decent. The bad part about this is that it's an ultra rare. It's really expensive to craft. I'm not gonna lie. Very, very difficult to do. And there's no real budget options for these kind of things. The one that comes to mind is just these Drawls. And you can use these instead of the Ash Blossoms if you need to in order to counteract some of these cards. It's kind of like the budget option, and in certain ways it is a lot better for other archetypes and decks, but as it stands, these reign supreme in terms of like negation. The next card I'm going to talk to you guys about is going to be, of course, oh boy, the Droplet. Why is Droplet important? Because 1, it has your opponent's attack points, that's just a cherry on top. But 2, your opponent will now not be able to activate their effects in order to activate their effects if you have to discard the amount of cards equal to the monster cards. But in response as well, they cannot activate effects with the same origin. So they cannot counteract the Forbidden Droplet if we discard a spell card or a monster card, because now they cannot use these cards in response to the Forbidden Droplet. Why is this very important? Because in certain decks, we can get counteracted. Now, if you guys seen my Dryton video, you'll know that you know how strong Drytons are, but you'll also know that there's a variation I talked about inside that video that I couldn't make just yet because the Heralds are expensive. It's the fact that if you have things like Herald of Ultimateness, or Herald of Perfection, or even these fucking Heralds of Orange Light, they can negate your entire deck strategy. You need a way to counteract these things. And here's the thing. If you knew something budget, like if there was a response to this, the thing to use if you don't have the wild cards You just buy the rare version of this. Forbidden Droplet is the card you should... Chalice is what you use. You negate the effect of a monster card in the field, and then you give them 400 attack points, which is fuck all. Why is this important? Because if they have something like an XC summon, or something like Tritons, or something like the Heralds, you want to be able to remove it before you even start your turn. Because if you do not, you automatically lose, because right from the get-go, they can remove all of your threats. They can stop you from summoning monsters. They can stop you from using magic cards. They can stop you from playing the game effectively by your first turn. So you need these kind of cards inside your deck to counteract the meta that is necessary. Another good thing that it can be used for is Mechaba. Mechaba and Tritons and everything else you can counteract with the Forbidden Droplet before it happens, but Mechaba is easy enough because it only happens once per turn, whereas the other ones happens multiple times, which is very annoying. But you're going to thankfully use Forbidden Chalice and things like that in order to do a budget option to remove it. I personally find Forbidden Chalice is okay to use in some circumstances. I think Droplet is a lot better. But Droplet does have the drawback, depending on how you look at it, of forcing you to put cards into your graveyard, which Chalice doesn't do. But it also has the benefit of not being able to being responded to if you drop the right cards. But also, very important here, is that that's only if you look at discarding cards as a con. Discarding cards is not a con in some decks. A lot of decks actually use their graveyards or recur value from their graveyards. You want things inside your graveyards in order to recur. Like, if we're going to be like this, Witchcrafter cards, I think this would go really, really good in, because you can use it to grab back all your cards you put into the graveyard, because these things can get back if you just discard them and don't use them for their main effect. Decks like that is why Forbidden Chalice is amazing. Or Forbidden Droplet is amazing, along with Mech as well. If you guys see my videos, you will understand I haven't had any Forbidden Droplets during the Witchcrafters, because at that time I didn't own any, which was insane. I don't want to say how much money I spent on this, but let's say it cost me like a little over 100 euros to get 2 copies of these, because you can get them from these packs over here with the Deceitful Wings of Darkness. So if you guys see a Deceitful Wing of Darkness gameplay video in the future from me, you know why. The next one I want to talk about here is Infinite Impermanence, also another hand trap here that is very important inside a lot of decks. Very good to have. If it's on your field, if it's on your field, you can use it to negate an effect during your opponent's turn or during your next phase if it's still there. But you can also prevent your opponents from activating cards that you can see inside their field. So let's say they place a card on their monster or inside their spell trap zone. You place this in the same location in your next turn. And then during their turn, they activate monster ability, you activate the Impermanence, and then that negates the effect of the card that was face down as well. But also, it acts as a hand trap during your turn. So let's say you're going second, and you want more value out of this, right? You don't have your Ash Blossom or anything. This is in your hand. You can still activate it if you have no cards on the field, which, if you're going second, you do not have any yet. So essentially, it's good going on the draw. It's also good if you are going on the play, because it can be set. So essentially, it works in 2 different ways. It can be used from the hand for free, it can be set for other effects, and it can be used later on inside the game. Problem, once again, is that you have to craft this. Look at this. There's nothing here. It's really, really a shame. And I do have some extra monster deck cards here that I want to show you guys, but I think I'm going to make a video on that separately. But for now, Zeus is pretty good to have in order to finish up your games. Artemis is pretty good in order to start the Alistair engine out, along with the Almorjog as well. Also very good for that. A bunch of Link ones are pretty decent. Let's keep it at that. Charmers is really good because you can like mind control your opponent's stuff from the graveyard, and if they're using Ash Blossom, this is why the red one's most prevalent as well. I also think putting in the Earth one's pretty good, but you also need an Earth monster in order to summon it, which isn't easy. Celine, pretty decent card to have as well, because if you do have her, you can like chain and link summon up into a Access Code Talker to finish the game. Or Appaloosa is also very situational as well, and I'll go through more extra deck monsters inside the next video, because this one I just want to cover up the main deck and, you know, alternatives you can use for it. But I think that's about all the cards that I have currently that I want to talk about that are like main staples and will take you a long time to get to. I'll probably do a part 2 of this video if there are, you know, any more cards that I think require our attention or have gone or the metagame has changed. But for now, try to craft these cards if possible. And trust me, once you have them, you'll see how versatile they are and how useful they will be. But yeah, that will be our video for today, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. If you guys enjoyed it, please be sure to like the video, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe for more content like this, and yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.